Sorry about that, everybody. I was channeling the council president, but my timing's not quite as good as it is.
Yeah, look at that.
It's not quite as good as it is.
never late. In fact, I am.
You're very close,
7 o'clock, I am here.
but never really late.
Never late.
Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, I'm going to call Gardner City Council to order. I'm going to invite everybody in attendance to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item on the agenda this evening is proclamation proclaiming the month of July 2016 as Parks and Recreation Month. But before we do that, yesterday was the 4th of July, and out at Celebration Park, we held another 4th of July celebration, I would say, dare say, extravaganza. And boy, is this an event that's grown. Not that long ago, there was a DJ up at the high school. People struggled to find parking, and we shut off some fireworks, and it was a good time. But a few years back, we started doing a bigger celebration out at Celebration Park, and it's continuing to grow. Last night, well, yesterday afternoon and into last night, we had face painting, which is nice, and bouncy houses, which is nice, and games, and zip lining, and 13 different food trucks, and 4 different musical acts, including Rusty LaFoon, Sarah Morgan, who apparently lives just outside the city limits. She might even have a Gardner mailing address, and her family actually lives in Gardner city limits. Big Time Grain Company, who was here for the second time, and of course the headliner Chase Bryant. I asked Cheryl earlier if we had an idea of the attendance, and the number you shared was
About 12,000?
about 12,000 souls coming out to Gardner to celebrate the 4th of July. And we were glad to have you all. And anybody in here that's in attendance, if you had something to do with this, I ask you to stand just real quick. Alan, you were and Gons, I believe your department provided some electricity.
Right.
Chief, I think we had some security. Cheryl, oh, and yes, our public works people. Brian, please stand.
CIO announcement.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, is Danica back there?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, yes, our public information officer, Danica Marshall of Kendo, and I think we owe them all a big round of applause.
Here.
Okay, so we don't come around for all of these proclamations, but we're going to come around for this one. Because it is Parks and Recreation Month. It's Parks and Recreation staff in attendance. I appreciate it if you join me up here. Okay. So, whereas park and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout the country, including Gardner, Kansas, and whereas our parks and recreations are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of the community and region. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas the Parks and Recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and Gardner, Kansas recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. And whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate together outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, now therefore be it resolved that I, Chris Morrow, Mayor of the City of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby proclaim July as Park and Recreation Month in the City of Gardner, Kansas. So, and I get to read all that so that I can say, you know, our appreciation for what our Parks and Recreation Department do for us knows no bounds, literally. We've got an award-winning department, whether it's 14 straight years with Tree City USA or 15, 13, close. Or whether it's winning awards for the Aquatic Center or for special events that we put on. Our Parks and Recreation Department is a gem that continues to shine for the City of Gardner. And I want to thank Ron and Matt and Alan, who's been pinch hitting for the last few months, for all their efforts in promoting parks and recreation functions within the City of Gardner. So I'm going to present this to Alan. I'd like to give everybody a big round of applause. Anita's going to want us to move in like we like.
One, two, three.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next on the agenda is the 2017 budget presentation. We're going to welcome Laura Gorley to the podium. Good evening, Laura.
Good evening. I feel like I do this every year. Okay, so as you know, a key component of priority-based budgeting is ongoing evaluation and monitoring. So with that being said, let's start off by reviewing the 2016 mid-year budget highlights. Before I start the review, though, I'd like to provide a few points to put things in perspective for you. This review is as of June 30th, which is halfway point through the year. So we're benchmarking against 50% of the budget. Revenues and expenditures do not occur evenly throughout the year in any fund. Everybody's property tax is due by May, and the county collects it and sends it to us. So by June, the cities receive most of their annual tax revenues. As you know, sales and use tax has a 2-month lag between point of sale and when the city receives their money. And motor vehicle taxes are due when vehicle tags are renewed by the owner's last name. So for whatever reason, our largest revenues are always received in September. I'm guessing that has the letter S in it, but I don't know that. So with that being said, the total general fund revenues are at 66% of the budget, at the 50% mark through the year. For comparison, last year we were also at 66%. Shown here are the major revenue components that we monitor regularly that represent 2/3 of the total general fund revenues. So as you can see, property tax revenues down a little, motor vehicle taxes are up a little without the largest distribution that comes in September. The city sales and use tax is up a little, and our share of the county-wide sales and use tax is down a little. So the summary of the changes shown here of these components, if you add them up, is a negative variance of $17,000 and a budgeted $8 million in revenues for these four components, or a 0% calculated variance. In other words, for 2/3 of the total general fund revenues that we monitor monthly are coming in exactly as we projected. General fund expenditures are at 46% of the budget. For comparison, last year we were at 43%. So, with both revenues and expenditures are behaving pretty much as budgeted. For the water fund, at the 50% mark through the year, revenues are at 48% of the budget. The usage is through May, so it does not include summer usage. Last year we were at 45%. Overall expenditures at 25% of the budget is artificially low at this point because debt service in the water fund is largely paid in the last quarter of the year. Operating expenditures are the most accurate representation of budget to actual at 27% because it excludes debt service, transfers, and capital projects. For comparison, last year's operating expenditures were at 36%. In summary, revenues high, expenditures are low, so there's obviously no concern for the water fund. For the wastewater fund, revenues are at 50% of the budget. Last year, we were at 50% of the budget. The usage is through May. It does not include summer usage. Overall expenditures are at 34%. Last year's overall was at 70%, but that's when we had transfers into the wastewater development fund for debt payments, and the transfers occur at the beginning of the year. So we're not going to use that anymore because we've combined the development funds into their parent funds. So again, the most accurate representation is the operating expenditures because it excludes debt, capital projects, and transfers. Operating expense at 52% of the budget at the 50% mark of the year, and so last year, for comparison, we were at 42%. So with revenue and operating expenditures being nearly 50%, at 50% of the way through the year, the wastewater fund is behaving pretty much as budgeted. For the electric fund, revenues are at 44% of the budget. Again, that does not include summer usage. Last year, we were at 47%. Overall expenditures is 39% of the budget. Operating expenditures are at 35%. Last year, it was 40%. So, revenues are off of last year's pace at -3%, combined with operating expenditures off of last year's pace of -5%. So your overall revenues are outpacing expenditures, and the electric utility reserves are robust. So there is zero concern about the electric utility. Further, as this June was the 8th warmest on record, and this week's forecast is toasty, I don't think we have anything to worry about. So that concludes the 2016 mid-year review of actual to budget. So as we prepared the 2017 budget, there were many meetings and a lot of presentations that were provided for information for the governing body to consider when you determined your budget policy. So I'm going to briefly review them, beginning with February 2nd, when we had the Citizens Budget Forum. On February 9th, we had the Golf Course Town Hall. February 15th was a council meeting where you received the report from the Citizens Budget Forum. February 29th was the Citizens CIP Workshop. March 7th, you had a council session to get the report from the Golf Course Town Hall. And at the March 7th council meeting, you had a report from the Streets, Sidewalks, Stormwater Advisory Committee for Sidewalks. On March 29th, you had a budget policy retreat. And during that retreat, we reviewed the end of year 2015 budget performance. Also at that retreat, the governing body directed staff to reduce the 2017 general fund tax revenue and the associated amount of property tax mill levy by the amount of the fire services contract at $1.4 million. This is equivalent to a reduction of 8.911 mills. The city's 2017 total mill rate will decrease from 29.455 to 20.544. Johnson County Fire One is responsible for 2017 and future tax levy for fire services. In April, we conducted the online budget survey, and a very busy meeting on May 2nd for the council covered several topics. I'm going to give you a little reminder where we started for the health insurance premiums and wellness plan. In 2015, you directed an employee engagement survey in your desire to transform to a high performance and build our bench through recruitment, retention, and training. So the results of the survey identified 3 areas for improvement: pay and comp, promotional opportunities or career ladders, and improvement for benefits. So council is making progress on the first 2, and this year you addressed that 3rd area of improving benefits. As a result of the council increasing the city's contribution to health insurance premiums, enrollment in the high deductible health plan decreased by 11% and increased by 13% in the HMO, and those waiving insurance decreased by 2%. At council's direction, you also had us develop a wellness program that contains 5 levels with rewards being granted at each level. The program includes wellness initiatives that are currently in place, as well as the best staff activities in effect at other organizations, including risk assessments, physicals, and encouraging a healthy lifestyle. At that meeting, you also approved the master plan updates for water and wastewater, which was part of the 2nd phase of the CIE, and you approved future debt issuance of $1.58 million for phase 1 of the street rehabilitation to be paid from the special sales tax fund. Also noted that night, there's approximately another $325,000 in cash projects to be paid in phase 1 from that sales tax that are ineligible for bonding because they don't meet the definition of main traffic way or connectors. At the May 16th council meeting, you approved the senior citizen rehabilitation contract to resolve your non-compliant ADA issues, increase energy efficiency, and decrease maintenance cost. The city's commitment to that project is $171,000. June 20th council meeting was another very busy night. The city administrator reviewed the status of 2016 initiatives at the halfway point of the year and presented the major 2017 initiatives with the estimated cost. Council approved the 2017 airport hangar rates and discussed the general fund subsidy of the airport with no likely resolution that the airport would be self-sustaining in the 5-year forecasting period. You approved the purchase of the 3rd of 4 planned parcels to provide a runway protection zone for the airport's north-south runway. And as the city now includes airport in the city operations, the city pays for any debt and for the 10% portion of the projects not covered by the FAA grants. Finally, that night, you approved the purchase of 15 1/4 acre of real estate to secure a site for future city facilities. July 5th, that's tonight. I just reviewed the mid-year 2016 budget performance highlights, and I'm walking you through the city administrator's recommended budget. You'll also note that on July 8th, there will be publication in the Gardner News of the statutorily required notice of public hearing for the July 18th public hearing. That publication also set the budget maximums based on the feedback that we received from the city administrator's presentation at the last meeting. So, this review illustrates there are many opportunities and a great deal of information presented to the governing body for direction that goes into developing the budget. What you don't see is staff's internal budget development calendar, but I can tell you it's just as extensive. So other things that went into this budget development, in March, at the budget policy retreat, staff noted strong 2015 end-of-the-year fund balances. We just reviewed the 2016 mid-year performance, and the revenues and expenditures are behaving as expected, so we're projecting strong end-of-the-year 2016 fund balances. As we review the highlights of the 2017 budget, the 2017 fund balance projections remain strong. So other components, city valuation increased 8.3% compared to last year's increase of 7.4%. You may recall, last year's valuation increase was captured in the debt service fund, and an additional 2 mills were moved from the general fund to the debt service fund to close the funding gap caused by those delinquent special assessments that we love, and eliminate the need for a mill levy increase in the 2016 budget. Because a substantial delinquency was recovered this year, for the 2017 budget, staff is returning back to the general fund the 2 mills that we borrowed, shifted, whatever you want to call it, last year, plus an additional mill to cover the ongoing general fund subsidy for airport operations. Sales tax uncertainty. As we just reviewed, city sales tax is up, our share of the countywide sales tax is down. Sales tax is subject to external influences, so it's important to maintain adequate reserves to cushion that uncertainty. As I noted in your council action form for your meeting packet, the decrease in the mill levy for fire services results in a total mill levy below the 22 mills minimum that was modeled in the 2015 funding capacity study. However, you have the ability to leverage your enterprise funds and virtually unlimited options for phasing and structuring of the debt, so you are still allowed to strategically pursue new opportunities. As we continue to build future budgets around the state-mandated tax lid, which limits property tax revenue growth to a 5-year rolling average of the Consumer Price Index, or inflation, which is currently 0.125%. The benefit of increased valuation growth will be essentially eliminated, with the exception of revenue from new development. For perspective, if we had been bound by the tax lid this year, your opportunities to purchase land and cover the airport's operations and any other delinquencies would have been limited. So, moving the 3 mills from the debt service to the general fund maintains fund reserves, funding capacity, and mitigates the sales tax uncertainty. So let's talk about CIP. As a reminder, the Capital Improvement Program, or the CIP, is a 5-year plan, but only the first year is actually approved at the time of the budget adoption. So CIP projects that were not previously presented as initiatives include the West Fork Kill Creek Trail Phase 1 and Quail Meadows Neighborhood Park Development, because staff is pursuing grant funding for these as 2 phases of the same project. And we'll review it again after we know what the outcome of the grant awards is. (191st Street and Gardner Road realignment is the only project included in the 2017-2021 or the 5-year CIP program at this time for investment in either of the city's 2 interchanges on I-35. It was included because it addresses current traffic safety issues, supports development, and KDOT is currently working with the city and HDR on studying the project. Design is in 2017, and the staff is pursuing additional funding sources, including grants. 175th and Waverly Road intersection reconstruction is also included for design in 2017. Every year, we perform an assessment of staff resources. Each time we get a vacancy, we evaluate whether to fill it as it exists or if the position needs revisions or adjustments. This year, we are recommending increases in FTEs and some additional adjustments to current positions to provide capacity for implementing performance measures, including your dashboard reporting, reviewing and implementing processes for increased efficiency, implementing the capital improvement recommendations related to the master plan updates, and to create a financial plan for the CIE, and assisting with economic development opportunities. For 2016, we're requesting a part-time customer service rep in finance. For 2017, the staffing requests are for a senior maintenance worker and line maintenance, a maintenance worker and line maintenance, and a part-time communications specialist. The line maintenance workers will assist in the implementation of a new INI preventative maintenance program, And the part-time communication specialists will continue to enhance our marketing initiatives and increase our presence on social media. These 2017 positions are being requested for approval in preparation for growth. So that would be an administrative assistant in business and economic development and a senior engineering technician. So finally, let's talk about our utilities again. The city administrator previously presented the capital projects that we're going to implement to maintain operations in our utilities, and they were also included in tonight's CAF. So as we've noted in previous years, the water utility is robust, even while it's subsidizing wastewater. Again, without the subsidy, we would have double-digit rate increases for wastewater, and they would spike every time you put in a future project. As in previous years, there are no budgeted expenditures in the Electric Capital Replacement Reserve Fund. And as I stated earlier, the projected end-of-the-year 2017 fund balances are good in all three utility funds. And for the second year in a row, no rate increases are recommended. Did you guys hear that? Mm-hmm. No rate increases for the second year in a row. So, you might ask, what does this budget do? So in summary, this budget is building funding capacity and building staffing capacity to set the stage for the new opportunities that were highlighted in last week's presentation. And the next steps for the upcoming meetings are July 18th, you'll conduct the budget public hearing, and on August 1st, council will consider budget approval.
Very good.
Okay.
Public comments regarding the presentation of the 2017 budget? I wouldn't wander too far.
Adam Cox, 285 East Skylar Street. So will it be like later, like at the public hearing where we have this is the total dollar amount, this is the dollar amount, this year's budget compared to last year's budget and that type of thing?
If I understand the question correctly, I think you're asking when does the budget detail and the budget book with the budget message come out? And that depends on what you say here tonight, but I think the target is the end of the week, depending on how many changes you do or don't make.
And that'll be published.
And it will be put online, and we'll put it online. We won't publish it because it'll still be the recommended, but it will be available online, or we can have a copy here for the city clerk's review and all the stuff that we always do.
Okay. All right. I don't see anyone else from the floor coming forward, so, council, questions for Laura regarding the 2017 budget presentation?
I think that Adam asked my question. I guess a follow-up for me is, when we're looking at, obviously it's our last one-year budget.
Mm-hmm.
Next year we're going to two-year budget cycles.
Mm-hmm.
Is the process going to change slightly with regard to, getting those numbers together next year, or are we sticking with the same kind of timetable? Or, obviously it's going to be a little bit more tricky to do a two-year budget cycle.
I haven't done one, but but the priority-based budget process remains the same. You still take stakeholder input. It's a more comprehensive look. Plan, implement, plan, implement, plan, implement. You're committing to a project's planning and implementation. So I would assume the process looks somewhat the same. Obviously, the citizens are still, it's just a little longer commitment. You're committing 2 years at a time.
Okay.
Just want to make that clear for
Okay.
folks.
Todd, you have anything?
No.
Chris?
Yeah, I just, and I'm not necessarily saying today, but the additional positions, if we could get a little more detail about those, I don't like necessarily adding positions without justification. So, especially the senior engineer technician, what exactly
Will they be
need
doing?
does that fill? So, and like I said, we don't have to have it tonight, but if you could send information to council that just details out the need for those positions and what they'd be doing.
Okay.
I'm watching them over there scribbling furiously. So, anything else, Christie? Anything else? Lee?
Yeah, I'm curious about the 5-year plan that you mentioned for the airport, and what exactly is in it, when will we get to take a look at it, and, so we can start thinking about what we're gonna do to, close that gap.
Yep.
In the funding, so we're not subsidizing it. So is that gonna be part of this?
No, the
Budget.
5-year airport, the airport master plan
Mhm.
we have, but what you'll get is you'll get the capital improvement program, which will have for water, wastewater, and electric.
Will we
And
get-
then we'll need to have an additional follow-up session to talk about kind of where you'd like to go with the airport, the kinds of things you'd like for us to look at for potential closing of the funding gap there.
One of the
Yeah,
things-
I think they're saying that they anticipate that it'll be 5 years before we can close that gap.
Right.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that, given policy direction from council, that we can't get there sooner.
Correct.
It might just pinch a little bit for the folks at the airport.
Mhm.
Right. One of the things I'm curious about is to see the, and I know we asked about this before, what is the, what are you guys reporting to the airport board in terms of finances on a monthly basis? Are you giving them like a,
The budget to actual
Snapshot.
comparison that all department directors get every month.
okay,
So that's their focus now, is budget to actual, budget to actual. And then they, they had I said this year's included, 2017 included you just approved the third of the 4 parcels, so the 4th parcel is included in 17.
Mhm.
But other than that, there's really not, other than operations and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, there's no huge plan anymore. And at the last meeting, you talked about having the advisory committee work on
Yep.
how you're gonna fix that.
Brian, are the airport board members getting more comfortable with seeing the budget to actual numbers?
I think a little bit. They're still, they still
It's
ask
new.
questions, it's new to them.
that's all I have.
Rich?
Real quick question. I saw, some of the numbers, I think it was 300,000 we were budgeting for new vehicles.
Mhm.
What vehicles are those, and, I mean, what departments, and?
As the city administrator presented last week, or last meeting, that was a placeholder.
Okay.
While staff works on
Okay.
which budgeted, it's just
That'll come out with
placeholder.
in the next, whenever we get the budget breakdown, it'll be in there with exactly departments and.
No, it'll still be a placeholder until, because every time we purchase vehicles, we have to come back to you, it's above her authority.
No, I understand. I just didn't know where we, like, I think this time last year, we had a breakdown of it was gonna be so many cars for, like, Parks and Rec, or for the police department, or whatever else. Do we have that breakdown for what that placeholder's?
Yeah.
There are 2 schools of thought on how you provide vehicles for a city. One is that you would buy for every department that makes a request.
Right.
The other school of thought is that you look at kind of a pool and fleet, and that school of thought has behind it perhaps maximizing the city's resources. So what we'd like to have an opportunity to do this year is put a placeholder in the budget and evaluate leasing versus purchase, evaluate whether we need one in each department that asks for one, or do we have the ability to have some economies of scale by having a pool, and different cities throughout the metro area actually implement this differently. So what we'd like to do is plan for something without coming to you and saying, we need one for each department that asks for a vehicle.
My concern would be that, though, and this is where we got into trouble before, is if we don't specify certain things for the police department, we're gonna run into the same problem we had where we had to buy 8 cars last year, because we're out of money, we don't have any money, and now we've got cars on the road again that are at 140,000 miles. I just don't wanna get back into that when we just kinda bought our way into a newer fleet, when now we've got, a dedicated car for the K-9, we've got, I went on a right along. A couple weeks ago, I think 3 of the cars are 50,000 miles already, you know, out of the 8 cars we bought. So, you know, those are ready to rotate out and, you know, where we don't run just the wheels off of them and then we're back to where we were. So I want to make sure we look at that in the budget, and anybody else want to chime in on that?
I'd like to get in.
Sure.
You know, for 25 years, Kenny Francis was chief of police in Gardner or chief of public safety and did a fine job, and Kenny was the kind of guy that could squeeze a nickel and make 6 pennies fall out.
Mhm.
And Kenny didn't always ask for what he needed. I can tell you that especially after our budgeting process last year, and I think my conversations with Chief Pruding, he knows that if he's got a need, he can ask for it and it's going to be taken seriously. As with any kind of capital equipment purchase, the important thing to remember is it doesn't matter if it's a truck for Gons or a backhoe for Brian or a police vehicle for the police department, as long as the particular department director can come forward and make a compelling case for why they need what they need, it's going to get serious consideration. And my guess is we're going to continue to make sure that the Gardner police fleet is going to stay up to snuff. And I think we proved that last year, and I think that we will be proving that going forward.
Well, I mean, to Rich's point, I think we talk about this every year, and part of this, I mean, I would really like for us just to have a serious discussion and create a vehicle maintenance policy.
I agree.
And that we can just forecast. So if we decide that police cars are going to be replaced at 50,000 miles, then you forecast for the next 2 or 3 years, these are how many cars that we think are going to be there. And you do the same thing with Public Works. But, you know, we get into all of this conversation because we don't have a firm policy. And so to me, that should be what we should be discussing is what does that need to be? The experts, Brian, Gons, you know, the people that work with vehicles, chief, that should be able to come and say, here's recommended, and let's just build that into the budget and get into this consistent flow. And not that every year we'll replace everything. I mean, I think each of them still get reviewed, but at least we can forecast what we think that's going to be.
I think you've got a point there, Christina. We've got to start managing to the exceptions. Right now, we're managing reactively with regard to our fleet, and if we can capture 90% of the fleet needs through a maintenance rotation, which is what you're talking about in the servicing rotation, and then we're just managing to, okay, we've got an emergency replacement for this vehicle because it blew an engine. Well, I can see that working a lot better than having to reevaluate, you know, in a reactive way, a third of the fleet every single year. I think that's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Well, no, and actually, I do agree with that. And I think that that this is something that we should be asking our city administrator to figure out what best
Absolutely.
practice is
I think we got
for cities of similar size, for growing cities, and see if we can institute that. Whether we're going to get it done for this budget or not, I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. But if we don't get it done for this budget, I think that we should be talking about this in greater detail, I mean, by the first meeting in September.
Well, if we've got
about laying out a
placeholder, the $300,000 placeholder, I mean, that's a good start.
That's a good start, but I think that if you can kind of lay out a time frame for us for when we can get the kind of policy that Christina and Steve are talking about, and Rich has kind of alluded to, if we can start working on that as soon as the budget's over. But I would like to see this back, just to give us all an update of where we are and how long we think it's going to take to get that instituted, probably right after the budget's put to bed.
I'd certainly like to see it before we make any more vehicle purchases or leases or whatever we're planning on doing there.
I would also like to see before that's done, obviously, what we're doing, whether it's a lease or whether, I mean, and what department it's for. I personally would like to see the requests from the department heads themselves, just so I can know that when I'm voting on something, that I'm voting for what I feel is the best option. I mean, that's why the citizens elected me to be here, so I'd like to be able to look at them and go, hey, look, I actually know why we did that and what, you know, other options were out there and why it was chosen over something else. I mean, I just don't like going in and going, well, you know, apparently that was the best recommendation. What else was out there? I don't know.
Well, here's my question about that, and it comes down to, you know, are we going to micromanage the process?
No, I'm just saying I'd like to be informed on what's going on.
I understand that. There's an advice and oversight thing that's happening here, but if we're talking about putting in a process, and the process is what's going to drive the expenditures, okay, then we can vote on the process and come up with a framework, but then we leave it to staff to execute that framework.
And on top of that, I think that when we purchased the police vehicles last year, we voted on that.
No, I agree.
You know, and that was the, and Chief Pruding spoke about it. I mean, he approached the podium, made his case. He had already cleared this through city administration, and that happens. It doesn't matter whether it's a skylift vehicle for utilities or you know,
Right, I understand.
or a snowplow for public works. None of that stuff, I mean, unless we're buying vehicles for less than $25,000, and we don't seem to be doing that anymore.
300,000, you think about it, I mean, you can buy one lift truck and it goes to 150 real quick.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, a $300,000 placeholder sounds like a big number, but depends on what else is out there that sucks up that budget.
I think you have a point, Rich, in that each department has its own specialized vehicles that are in their fleet. And so from that perspective, we need to get that framework from each of the department heads because they know how their fleet is used.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we can begin to make some decisions based on the specialized use and how those are going to stagger. Because you're not going to buy a lift truck every 3 years.
Let's hope.
But you might buy a police vehicle every 3 years.
Well, and my guess is,
You know, or replace one, I mean.
yeah, my guess
Yeah.
is, we're gonna task Cheryl with this, but she's gonna have to lean heavily on the department directors,
Exactly.
and best practices for their individual, departments as well as overall best practices for the city.
Well, I would just say, for this budget cycle, I think, you know, to Rich's point, I know I hear the old Parks and Rec gets everything, you know, they're like the glory child. Police department doesn't get I mean, you always hear this stuff, and you know employees are just, you know, but the fact is, we have limited dollars.
Right.
And so, you know, if it's $300,000, I would like to hear, this is what we're doing for each department with that $300,000, and this is what is kind of on the fringe. This is what we're not doing. This is what we'd like to do. And that way, you can have a good basis for a decision to say, is that truly the most important thing?
I've got a question for Laura and/or Cheryl. I mean, yes, we've got a $300,000 placeholder number. I mean, is this arbitrary, or is there a reason that you picked $300,000?
It's not arbitrary, but there is a vehicle replacement program analysis that we do every year, and that was kind of the cutoff of the ones that are still kind of urgent. However, there's been a lot of discussion among city managers and among staff about, is purchasing the best way to do this? Because we've talked in the past about leasing. You know, there was a time when we leased our police fleet, and we turned them over every 3 years and turned them back in and got 5 more, but you got a bigger fleet now. So it was the simple fact of maybe we should think outside the box, but $300,000 is a nice piece of money to put in a placeholder while we evaluate the best opportunities and bring back just exactly the information that you all just talked about.
Well, even a purchase versus a leasing decision is going to be based on the use.
Right.
I mean,
It could be a hybrid.
absolutely.
Mhm.
I had, one
Tom,
other,
you wanna-
one other thing I was just, we've talked about, a little bit about a new entry sign for
Mhm.
the, is that, I didn't see it included in here, is that,
Because there was talk about putting it within another project, but either way, you got plenty of money. So, when it comes down to how much is this sign, we'll find it.
okay.
No worries.
Anybody else? If not, we can move along. Laura,
Thanks, Laura.
thank you
That's it.
very much, as always. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a council member present that would like to remove an item from the
We
consent
forgot
agenda?
public comment.
Point of order. we
Oh,
have public
oh.
comments.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is public comments. Start going through the stack instead of going down the sheet. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. I do see a couple of new faces in the audience today, so I will let you all know. When you come forward, please state your name and address for the record, and we will be glad to hear you. We generally limit public comment time to about 5 minutes per person. So, if there's anyone present, please approach the podium and be heard.
Good evening. I'm Jamie Lavin. I live at 220 East Westhoff Place. I was, my last activity in City Hall was with the Planning Commission under Carol Lehman. The reason I'm here tonight probably doesn't apply to what's on the agenda, but we had a lot of difficulty last night with regard to fireworks. I know you all voted for this, and I know that, or most of you voted for it, I apologize. I just have some thoughts for you that might help in the future. We were, of course, inundated with tons of fireworks. Unfortunately, there was an enormous amount of high-power fireworks, things that blew up out of a tube like a shell. I kind of feel responsible for where we are with our fireworks programs because I was the president of the JCs that got the fireworks shooting going a long time ago. And because we didn't have, all we had were policemen trying to put out literally fires before we had a place where everyone could gather and watch the shoot. We had $1 million coverage, which probably sounds like a very small amount now. So if you bought $6,000 worth of shells, you spent $6,000 in insurance. We were subject to professional shooters this weekend that were shooting on USD 231 property without permit, insurance, or permission. I spoke with Chief today, and we talked about the size of the shells that were sold locally that you could get with a cardboard tube. They tend to have a really big bang. So my thoughts for you all, and certainly this is your city now, but I would help your new chief of police. Don't put him and his people in this impossible spot. There's just no way to enforce fireworks shooting unless you limit the amount of firepower that one can own or buy or bring into the city. And I don't know how you stop that, but that's something you might want to think about. Also, I hope council is prepared for the joint liabilities that can happen now. And I wasn't in your discussion, so I don't know. But many of you will note that cars were damaged last night. Couple of roofs. Nobody got hurt. Everyone missed the bullet last night, thank goodness. I love shooting fireworks off, or I did. It's a lot of fun, but it's very dangerous. If a sparkler is 1,200 degrees, I don't know how you guys sleep at night. We didn't when we were on the JCs. We worried terribly about what might happen if one of those 8-inch shells went too far south. And one did. One fell on a car, or a pickup truck, I think it was. And so our insurance never really changed, but we did have a couple of claims we paid, or that they paid. So I don't know what the legalities are for that. The last thing I thought about was, how about a 10 p.m. or 10:30 p.m. limit on weeknights, Sunday through Thursday? We had fireworks that went off under my bedroom window last night at about 10:30. And I have to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning, which is that's not your problem. But a lot of my neighbors have to be up really early to commute. So I thought maybe Sunday through Thursday we could have a slightly different program. And that's really all I had for you. Okay?
Thank you.
I think you all do a really good job. I was really mad this morning when I found out my chiropractor voted for this. I called all over town to find someone else. No, but like I said, I really always enjoyed it. So see if you can strike a balance for the future. It would be helpful. And I would also like to encourage you to consider the firepower that is sold. If I don't want to take your AR-15 away from you, but I don't really need to hear something that loud just to wake the neighbors, if you will. Okay? Thanks for your time.
Any question?
No.
Oh, you looked like you had one. Sorry, Mayor.
No question.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jeremy. Other comments? Approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and be heard. We're trying to limit comments to 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be probably way under that. My name is Charles Zink. Address is 28530 West 159th Terrace. And just in reference to the fireworks last night, I just wanted to basically say thank you to everyone for allowing that to happen. My neighborhood, for one, was absolutely amazing. It was like a party going on. And I can say, at least for my neighborhood, prior to this, in the years past, yeah, go watch fireworks display, go home, go to bed, wake up 1, 2 o'clock in the morning with the occasional bang, boom. Because people are going to fire off fireworks. I mean, they're going to. It's going to happen no matter what. We all know that. But as it was, you would just get that one every 10 or 15 minutes. They're trying to space it out so they don't get caught. This was everybody in the neighborhood gathered together, kids out, lawn chairs out, blankets out, barbecues out, having a great time. By 11 o'clock, it was pretty much everybody was done. I know from speaking from my neighborhood, by 11:15, dead quiet, everybody's packed up, cleaned up, gone back inside, quiet the rest of the night, slept the whole night with a grin on my face. So, I don't know what else has been said. I'm sorry I got here late, but I, for one, and I know I can speak for my entire neighborhood, absolutely loved it. It was amazing. I think our display in our neighborhood was probably better than any we could have gone to. So, on behalf of my neighborhood, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Charles?
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you, Charles.
My name is Melidia Payne. I live at 635 Oak Crest Circle. I am terrified right now, so I'll just go ahead and put that out there. I do not like to speak, but I wanted to come and make sure that my voice is heard. I did contact each of you, except for Chris Morrow today, but I did want to come to the official meeting. Some of you enjoyed my conversation more than others. Some of you were more polite than others, but I did appreciate talking to all of you. Some of you, anyhow, I'll move on. I am very disappointed that you overturned the ban. I think that was ridiculous. You had several recommendations not to overturn the ban, yet you disregarded those. And so I personally am very disappointed that my property rights were less important than other people's personal rights to freedom and fun. I spent both mornings, today, it was Saturday, or Sunday morning, whatever, the mornings after they were allowed to shoot off, I had to spend the entire morning cleaning out my pool from cardboard debris that went everywhere. I personally didn't shoot any off, but I spent hours cleaning this up. If you don't have a pool, if you don't know, things like that can get sucked into your pump and ruin it. They are several $1,000s. So there was that. There's all the litter on my yard. There's all the litter in the streets. My question about that is, who did you decide was going to be in charge of that? Is that codes or police that is tasked with patrolling that and cleaning that up?
We generally allow this as time for the public to make comments.
Oh, I'm
We
sorry.
address
I do
at the end of
apologize.
the meeting.
Okay, so I'll keep going. So anyhow, then there's all the stains on my deck furniture and towels that were left out on my pool deck from all this like orange powder that goes everywhere. It does not clean up easily. In a pool, you would think the water, it would just like disperse. That powder does not. It drops in like these big piles down on the bottom of the pool that stains and is hard to get out. It's very hard to clean off of stuff. My car also had things dropped on it. Our streets, we were trying to drive back home last night, and there was stuff going off all on the sides of the roads. I've since learned that people weren't allowed to be shooting them off in the streets. That was part of this that you set out. So now then, my new concern is you guys were concerned about the police not being able to enforce that. The problem is way larger, that they can't enforce all the number of people that were out in the streets. It's an even larger problem than it was before that you guys were concerned on. So basically, it has to be just, if your thought was, I'm going to vote for it because it's impossible to enforce this ordinance, then there needs to be absolutely no restrictions, and you can just do everything because they can't enforce them, or none at all. And then my other concern, I've learned more today speaking with you all about the ordinance, is that officers are required to be able to differentiate between sounds of what things is allowed to explode and what's not, or people who contact the police. They were supposed to, several of you said, like cherry bombs, M80s, other things, like, well, if you heard those, you should have called the police. Like, I'm some firework expert here that I can differentiate between these sounds, and police to know as well. So I think it was an epic fail. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lydia.
Thanks, Lydia. Other comments?
I thought you were going to answer about my question about...
Oh, actually, that's, public comments is your opportunity to talk. We'll discuss the things that we heard during public comments, during council updates, actually at the end of the meeting. On the plus side, we do record all the meetings. Video of the meeting will be available online at that.
So I should have said it was Rich Melton. That was very disrespectful on our phone calls instead of just listening at him. I do apologize.
It was me. I admit it.
Okay.
I don't think that surprised anybody up here.
I just wanted to double back. I'm sorry.
No problem.
All right. Anyone else?
My name is Aaron Smith. I live at 813 South Cedar. Really wanted to say some positive comments tonight about the fireworks, kind of to balance out the negatives. I kind of want to build on what the gentleman here in the black hat said. It was a great opportunity for our neighbors and all to get together. Based on what I saw around us, I think about 90% of the city was shooting off fireworks. Everybody seemed to be pretty responsible. I just think it was a really good time to get to know your neighbors. Everybody was really responsible. I didn't hear or see anything that said that there were, a lot of injuries, a lot of illegal activity going on. Everybody seemed to be real responsible. And actually, compared to past years when it has been illegal, I've noticed that people seem to behave a little bit better this year. I noticed people weren't trying to hide it. They weren't trying to shoot off after hours. It just seemed a little bit more organized and a little bit more, everybody seemed a little bit better behaved since they really could do it legally. So, in past years, I know I've had some neighbors that no matter, they've had the big shells, they're shooting them off way past, midnight or something like that. Stuff would be going on much past that until somebody had to call PD to come out and take care of it. And this year, it just didn't seem like that. It seemed like everybody understood the rules. They shut it off on time, and it was a really nice thing to have. So I think it went well. I think people were really excited this year to see the opportunity to shoot out the fireworks and do it. And I don't even know if we'll be able to beat this year, past years. I mean, as far as the participation, I think people will get used to it, and some people will choose to participate, and a lot of people won't. So, but I do again want to thank you guys. It was a very positive opportunity for me and my family, and we felt like we had a lot of freedom to do the things we want to do on our property, and it was really nice. And I'm glad that we have the opportunity. I hope everybody in the city can be responsible in the future and keep this going. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Anyone else? With no one else coming forward, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Melidia, by the way, you can always contact me as well. Always glad to hear from the citizens. Is there a council member that would like to remove an item from the consent agenda?
I'd like to remove item number 3, but it's only to ask a single question.
Okay. How would council like to proceed with consent agenda items 1, 2, and 4?
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Winters, second, that we approve consent agenda items 1, 2, and 4. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstention? Consent agenda items 1, 2, and 4 pass. Questions regarding consent agenda item number 3, Councilman Schuch?
Yeah, the only thing I had a question about was, I just wanted to get some exposure to this on, knowing that we have a subsequent item in the regular new business agenda, that talks about moving that easement. So I just wanted to make sure that all we're doing here on this utility easement is just we're procuring a new one, and then we're just going to, as a future council item, remove the other easement that we're vacating, right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed.
Are you sure?
I am sure.
If that's the case, I would entertain a motion on consent agenda item number 3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Schuch, second, Moore, that we approve consent agenda item number 3. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstention? Consent agenda item number 3 passes. There are no committee recommendations. There is no old business. New business item number 1. Consider adopting a resolution authorizing the city of Gardner, Kansas to construct improvements to certain main traffic ways and traffic way connections, and authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds of the city to pay the cost thereof pursuant to KSA 12-685. It's sequitur, isn't that right, Greg?
Yes.
Very good. Laura, welcome back to the podium.
Hi. I'm here because this is one of my famous housekeeping items. So, you may have remembered that you've already been there and done that on May 2nd about this. What you did on May 2nd was you went through an ordinance that authorized a whole bunch of streets as traffic way or traffic way connectors, which makes them eligible for bonding. And then Brian and his team had a bid opening, and they got really great prices. So now they can add more streets and still have the $1.58 million cover what's eligible for bonding.
Awesome.
So, because
Go, Ryan.
when you have a bonding resolution out there, it was very specific as to what streets we were doing what to. Well, now we've added streets, so you have to pass a new one. Housekeeping.
Awesome.
Very good. If everybody's read their packet, then I would imagine we don't need any more presentation. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to make public comment regarding new business item number 1? It is housekeeping. With no one coming forward, questions regarding new business item number 1? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion on
So moved.
resolution number 1952.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Melton, second Moore, that we adopt resolution 1952, authorizing the city of Gardner, Kansas to construct improvements to certain main traffic ways and traffic way connections, authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds of the city to pay the cost thereof pursuant to KSA 12-685 as sequitur. City Clerk, can you call roll?
Councilmember Harrison?
Yes.
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Councilmember Moore?
Yes.
Councilmember Shute?
Yes.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
1952 passes. New business item number 2, consider authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Superior Bowen Asphalt Company, LLC, for the 2016 pavement management program for street treatment, granite seal and overlay. Brian, welcome to the podium.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a follow-up on what Laura just talked about. This project is the first of several annual projects that will be undertaken as part of the city's comprehensive pavement management plan. This year's project does consist of 2 types of improvements: surface preservation and major maintenance. An invitation to bid was published in the Gardner News and on the city's website, and bids were publicly opened on June 1st. The low bidder for the project was Superior Bowen Asphalt Company. Superior Bowen's bid was $1.257 million. Based on the favorable bidding climate, which did result in lower than anticipated costs for the bonded improvements, we were able to add additional streets to the project. The low bidder did agree to honor their unit prices from the original bid for these streets, raising the total for the construction to $1.561 million. City staff has worked with Superior Bowen Asphalt LLC on previous projects, both in Missouri and Kansas, and we do recommend award of the contract to them as they were the low bidder. City staff originally anticipated issuing a notice to proceed around August 8th. That was an attempt to work with the contractor. The contractor has indicated that he would actually like to start as early as next week, and he will have 60 days to complete the project. The suggestion motion tonight is to authorize the city administrator to execute a contract with Superior Bowen Asphalt Company, LLC, for the 2006 pavement management program for street treatment in an amount not to exceed $1,561,266.35.
Thank you for the presentation, Brian. Public comments regarding new business item number 2. With no one coming forward, questions for Brian or other staff regarding new business item number 2? Anyone?
Way to go is all I'd like to say, Brian.
Yeah, good work, Brian. What are the additional streets that were added?
The maps provided on this one, it's actually some of the ones that the legend shows, I believe, in orange.
Yep.
Are some of the ones that we added for this section.
All of those or just a part of those?
Just a part of it, it's actually, what we did, we tweaked it, we actually tried to group streets together.
Mhm.
We had, if you look at the one back in May, you'd actually have a street that we'd go for 3 blocks, leave a block out, and then go for 2 more blocks. And so what we try to do is to actually make sense of the project and do all that street, even though a part of it might not have been recommended for another year or 2.
It looks like a lot of streets were
Right.
quite a few streets were added to the project.
Roughly $300,000 worth of streets right.
That's amazing.
Well, there's quite a few of them. I noticed North Cherry's on there.
Yep.
I'm hopeful.
And I gotta commend Abdul, he's been
Yep.
our project engineer on this, and he's done a fantastic job. He's the one that put the specs together and got the good bids for us.
Great.
Fantastic.
Tell them we said thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions, comments? I'd entertain a motion on new business item number 2.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Harrison, second Melton, that we authorize the city administrator to execute a contract with Superior Bowen Asphalt Company, LLC, for the 2016 pavement management program for street treatment, granite seal and overlay, project in an amount not to exceed $1,561,266.35. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstention? New business item number 2 passes.
Fix some streets.
Got that right.
Long time coming.
New business item number 3, consider adopting an ordinance amending Title 8 Property Maintenance of the Gardner Municipal Airport. Jeannie Kuntz, good evening. Welcome to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This again is another housekeeping item. As you know, the Code Enforcement Division was recently moved to function under the Police Department, and the Property Maintenance Code currently has the references to Community Development Director. This ordinance changes it to City Administrator or Designee, which gives us flexibility if the position were ever to move again.
Great.
Good. Any public comments on the housekeeping? Seeing none, questions regarding new business item number 3? I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Shute, second Harrison, that we adopt ordinance 2519, amending Title 8 Property Maintenance of the Gardner Municipal Code. City Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Harrison?
Yes.
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Councilmember Moore?
Yes.
Councilmember Shute?
Yes.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
2519 passes. New business item number 4. Consider adopting an ordinance terminating and releasing of record the utility easement recorded in the Johnson County Register of Deeds Office, Johnson County, Kansas, in Plat Book 115 at page 37, located on the property owned and occupied by Unified School District number 231. Gans Garcia, good evening, welcome.
Good evening, City Mayor, City Council members. The Unified School District, number 231, has requested the city to vacate a utility easement that runs across their property. The property is located on the south side of Madison Street, approximately half a mile east of Waverly Road. The only utility currently using the easement is the city. The city has plans to relocate the electric line around the east side of the proposed building addition into an easement to be dedicated by USD number 231, which is a consent agenda number 3. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt an ordinance terminating and releasing of record the utility easement recorded in the Johnson County Register of Deed Office, Johnson County, Kansas, in the Plat Book 115 at page 37, located on property owned and occupied by Unified School District 231.
Gans, thank you. Public comments regarding new business item number 4. Does council have questions for Gans or other city staff regarding new business item number 4? I'd entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 2520.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Winters, that we adopt ordinance number 2520, terminating and releasing of record the utility easement recorded in the Johnson County Register of Deeds office, Johnson County, Kansas, in Plat Book 115 at page 37, located on property owned and occupied by Unified School District number 231. City Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Harrison?
Yes.
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Councilmember Moore?
Yes.
Councilmember Schutz?
Yes.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
2520 passes. New business item number 5. Consider appointment of a Parks and Recreation Director. Cheryl, you gonna work from the dais?
I think so. I think this is an easy one. We, recently recruited for our new Parks and Recs Director. We received over 50 applicants. Mr. Scott Gary is the recommended appointment from the city of Joplin, and he brings an extensive amount of experience, as well as being a certified park executive. And, the request is to seek your approval so that we can appoint him.
Okay. Well, it's an easy, presentation. Comments from the public regarding new business item number 5?
Can you give me that name again, Cheryl?
Yes, it is Scott Gary, and that is spelled Garrie.
Okay. Questions or comments for Cheryl or other staff regarding new business item number 5?
That's good.
I actually had a question. It seems like he hadn't been in Joplin very long. I didn't know if there was, I mean, that's, stability is one of those things for that position. We really make sure he's gonna be here for a while, so we're good on that, right?
Yes, he is looking to relocate to the area. This is his home area.
I saw he did some time in Mission, so.
Yes.
Okay.
He went to high school in the metro area, so this is home. He has family in the area, so he's looking to come back home.
Okay. All right. I will go with you on that then.
Other questions or comments?
He's got some shoes to fill, but I think he'll fill them ably.
You're talking about Alan?
Yes, Alan.
You're the man, Alan.
You're the man.
If there's no other questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion on
So
new
moved.
business item
Second.
number 5. Motion Shoot, second Moore, that we appoint Scott Gary as Parks and Recreation Director. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? New business item number 5 passes.
Nice job, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your service, Alan.
New business item number 6, consider acceptance of public infrastructure at Orchland Farm and Home located at 18710 Gardner Road. That building's looking better all the time.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Welcome back to the podium, Brian.
Oh, thank you. As with several other items before you this evening, this is somewhat of a housekeeping item. The developer has recently completed the construction of the public infrastructure, which does include storm, sewer, and wastewater only. Having received a recommendation from our city engineer that the infrastructure was installed per the city's specifications, staff does recommend that the council formally accept the improvements into the city system. The staff would suggest that the city adopt resolution number
1953.
accepting the public storm sewer and sanitary sewer improvements installed with the development of the Orchland Farm and Home store located on Gardner Road.
Okay, public comments regarding new business item number 6. Seeing none, questions for Brian regarding new business item number 6.
The only thing I've got is a question about, and this is really more for the public's consumption, once these are accepted, they can tap into the system and do what they need to do.
They are ready to stock the shelves tomorrow.
Excellent. That's what I want to hear. Awesome. Thanks, Brian.
Fantastic. And that's as opposed to some of the other places, and we've got some nice shops and stores in town, this is a destination retailer that will bring people in from across the area. So, I'd entertain a motion on resolution number 1953.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Harrison, second Melton, that we adopt resolution number 1953, accepting the public storm sewer and sanitary sewer improvements installed with the development of the Orchland Farm and Home Store located at 18710 Gardner Road. City Clerk, can you call roll?
Councilmember Harrison?
Yes.
Councilmember Melton?
Yes.
Councilmember Moore?
Yes.
Councilmember Shute?
Yes.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Resolution 1953 passes. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. We have no executive session scheduled for this evening, and we're one short agenda item away from adjournment. So, council updates. We'll start with staff. Do you have anything for council? Guns, anything?
Yes, an update on substation number one. Last year, we purchased a transformer for the 2 units we have, also a circuit breaker, and then 2 vacuum circuit breaker for the distribution side. We have commissioned the transformer, the circuit breaker, the 161 kV breaker is in service, feeding the T2, which is a distribution transformer, and the 2 vacuum breakers are operating. We're behind. We're behind with T1. We run into some problem with the wiring. The drawings were not kept to date, so we run into some problems. So right now, our target is to have everything back in service by the end of July. So we're about a month behind.
Okay.
And KMA has been. We have reported to KMA that the units are not available until July.
All right. These things will happen, that's for sure. Delays, part of doing business. Alan, any outgoing thoughts as you leave your interim Parks and Recreation?
The only thing I would say is that we have outstanding Park and Recreation staff, and they do a lot of good things for the city, and they're all very hard workers, and compliment them on the excellent work they do.
Very good.
Here, here.
Thank you, Alan. Brian?
Nothing, Mayor.
Cheryl?
Just thank you for the support of the budget this year that allowed us to put on the event that we did. I heard about it very far from our city this morning, up in the Shawnee area. So I just want to thank you for allowing us to continue to put on great programs here on the quality of life.
Okay. Very good. Greg, you're pinch hitting. I bet you don't have anything, do you?
I do not have anything to contribute to the agenda other than Ryan wishes everybody well.
Very good. Laura? City Clerk Jeannie Coons, nothing? Chief, I'm sure you probably have something.
Well, I was on the phone a lot today. I'm sure some of you got some of those phone calls too. Overall, I think the holiday was, pretty much a success. We had no injuries, no fire calls. We did have a 50% increase in calls for service, 41 this year versus 27 last year. Looking through the call logs, most of them were people complaining that people were shooting off the legal fireworks, which obviously is difficult to determine. We did find evidence behind Sunflower School of people shooting off Class B fireworks. We found the metal mortar tube and then an electronic fuse that was left at the scene, but they were long gone. But overall, most of the complaints were that, and then we followed up on some in the street. Didn't issue any citations. By the time we got there were a couple occasions where people were doing it in the street, and we just gave them a warning, reminded them of the ordinance, and we never had any repeat calls. So, overall, I think we came out on the positive end this time.
All right. Does council have anything for staff? We'll start with Rich.
I just want to say thanks to everybody at the city, the Parks and Rec Department and everything for, yesterday's event. I mean, it was a fantastic event. My wife and the daughters were just ecstatic about everything out there. My wife did say she would have liked a little bit more lag time between the end of the concert and the fireworks, but I was like, look, just, it was free. Remember that, so, so those of you who I tell that to, I tell my wife that too, so, but it was really fantastic, and on a personal note, I was 100% behind the fireworks. I did a little research on my own. I went around today, actually, at first I went around and just met all the vendors, and I never told them who I was. I just went in and said, hey, thanks for setting up. We appreciate you coming to town. And then I went around today and followed up and just said, hey, how was your event? I mean, first time in Gardner, I just kind of wondered what was going on. The only one who would really give me any kind of hard numbers is the folks who were in front of Price Chopper, and they were volunteer groups. So they were doing it to raise money for their not-for-profit. They sold $80,000 worth of fireworks at that one location. And as they had the same problem that everyone else had that was selling fireworks in town, and that was really inventory.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't get enough of it. They were bringing 2 or 3 trucks a day to refill their shelves. In fact, every one of those people had other stands somewhere else, and Gardner outperformed every one. So I think considering the volume of fireworks that went out the door and the fact that we didn't get nobody died, nothing burned down, I'm with Chief, it's a success. So that was all I had, so.
Okay. Thanks, Rich.
Thanks.
Lee?
I guess I'll say something about the fireworks as well. I received 2 negative comments, one through email, one from phone call. Young lady that was here tonight contacted me over the phone. Overall, I felt like I drove, Aaron and I drove around in the convertible, kind of to see what it looked like, and all over town. We went to all the different neighborhoods on Thursday night, and we saw all manner of people outside their homes, which I thought was pretty interesting, because normally everybody's closed up in their homes on a Thursday night or on a Sunday night, and I thought that was interesting. Even in my own neighborhood, I saw neighbors outside that I didn't even know what they looked like, because they always just go into their garage and push the button and they're gone. Sort of like our city administrator. Not to name any names.
Oh, focus. I thought this was about fireworks, not about
fireworks.
I thought, I did see. I mean, obviously the arguments that we had over this ordinance. We talked about the lack of ability to enforce the previous ordinance, and the lack of enforcement over the years of the previous ordinance. I did notice, as Mr. Smith said at the podium, 12:03 on Monday night was the last firework I heard, and I was out on my driveway in a lawn chair watching all the fireworks going on around me in like 360 degrees in my neighborhood. So all that's to say, overall, I thought it was a very positive thing. We also noted, I drove around this afternoon and looked for debris. There are pockets of the city that aren't as clean as others. My neighborhood, it looks pretty much like nothing happened. Other neighborhoods, and in particular, I went to Cottage Creek and saw quite a bit of debris on the street there. So you got to take with the good with the bad, I suppose. And that's probably the worst of it. So that's all I had.
Christina?
I want to have kind of a discussion about appointments, and specifically, I have a concern. We were interviewing for a BZA appointment this week. There were, last couple of weeks, there were 4 people that applied. One of the people, per the rules and procedures, is over the 8 years, and so they're, for all intents and purposes, disqualified. So we have 3 people remaining for 3 positions. All 3 of them, one of them is renewing, so obviously he has a little bit more experience. The other 2, pretty much the same experience. We could not reach consensus on one of them, personally, from my perspective, for something that's not a documented requirement. It's an occupation, that one, person felt that occupation should, not allow this person to be able to be considered. So what that means is we would have to contact this person, send it out to reapply for somebody that's perfectly as qualified as anybody else. So I don't think it's right. I think that we are, I think when we start making decisions based on something that's not documented, I think we really start hurting the process, in my opinion.
I'd just like to say, the appointment process, each person on the appointment board, each person on the selection committee, that is, has a prerogative. They don't have to share their reasoning with the other committee members. They can just say no. And in this case, if there was no consensus among the committee members, probably the wisest course of action is to not share the reasoning. If your answer is no on a candidate, you just say no and move on. And you don't reach a consensus, and then it gets brought back to us, and we have to, go through the whole process again. But if you did reach a consensus on 2 of the 3, I see no reason why you wouldn't have brought 2 of the 3 to the council.
That's something that the city clerk puts the agenda together with the city administrator, and the department directors. Honestly, it is the BZA. They don't meet very often. I don't know that we have something immediately on the agenda. So, my guess is that we can get it on a future agenda before another BZA meeting has to take place.
I think that would probably be the best approach. I think we need to get this before the governing body sooner rather than later, because we don't want to be out of compliance with our own rules of procedure. I mean, are we currently in compliance?
Well, the moment that we probably have to go back out for another round of applicants, there always exists a chance that we're probably out of compliance with the timeline established in the rules of procedure.
If the 2 are brought forward, though, they would be able to have a quorum. They'd only be short one person, right?
Sure, but we wouldn't have met the timeline with the final member. To Christie's point, it was discussed amongst the interview team that maybe this person, because of their previous occupation, shouldn't be considered, and I don't know that that's a slope that we want to go down. And at this point, I'm going to probably have to pull the interview team back together to make a determination if we are where we are, and whether or not we need to go back out for more applicants. But it's concerning to me when we start disqualifying citizens, voters, longtime residents of the city that are qualified and have applied. With that being said, I do think I want to get the interview team back together before we make and have a final discussion before we make a determination about whether we'll go back out or not. But we want to get it wrapped up as expeditiously as possible. So, is that okay with you, Christine?
That's fine.
Okay. Todd?
back to fireworks. And I don't want to get into too much tonight, but I would like to revisit this at some point prior to next year. I think there's some suggestions, maybe to help compromise, people that want to shoot, people that don't want to shoot. So at some point before then, let's get together and hash some of that out again.
I'd agree.
I actually think it might be good for a voting town hall type scenario. I mean, and maybe we approach it as we're not really we're looking to enhance it.
Right.
Right? So,
Get everybody's
what are
feedback,
some
ideas.
things that we can do? What are some of the feedback that we heard, and utilize that to have some conversation?
We'll need a strong police presence that night, Chief.
That could draw some more interest in the activity also. I mean, this year was the first year.
Right.
It was a free-for-all.
Oh, man.
Extravaganza.
Yeah, there were some bumps in the road.
They were running, we ran out of Roman candles.
Rough around the edges a little bit.
It was rough around the edges, I'll admit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that,
I think there's good opportunity for compromise, and I mean, 'cause I enjoyed shooting them off too, but at the same time, I did have a lot of complaints and a lot of issues, and I want to be sensitive to that, so I think we can.
I agree.
I agree.
Anything else, Todd? Steve?
Yeah, I think what most of the people have said about fireworks is kind of what I was hearing too, a lot of opportunities for people to get together and get to know their neighbors, and some people had not even known their neighbors, and they've been here 4 or 5 years, and they got a chance to meet their neighbors and get familiar.
I don't even know Cheryl hardly.
So.
She lives right down the street from me.
I mean, what kind of crazy person comes in and moves in next to us?
And that
The whole
being,
town is Cheryl moves in next.
present company excluded, of course, but I thought it was a really neat sight to see those folks that were out there that were helping to enhance the quality of life and get back to something that hadn't been here in quite a few years. It was kind of neat to see. So, I did have a couple of questions. One is about the status of the Day 3 property out on the east side of I-35. Well, how is that coming along? How close are we to being, to having an annexation agreement brought before the body? I know we had talked about that.
Mhm.
And the second one is the Stark property, which is our big thorn in the side now. And have we heard anything from our friends at the county appraiser's office?
I want to piggyback in on that too, and Rich's trailer's on there too.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, right,
Yeah.
wait,
So-
trailer, the containers.
Yes, continue.
The containers.
I think of my trailer.
So,
It's in my driveway.
Cheryl, how do you want to,
We'll take Stark property first.
Okay.
Laura?
And you were referring to the delinquent specials or the containers, because I'm not
The
a
delinquent
container lady.
special assessment.
Okay,
The
so
big one.
where we left off with that was, City Attorney Dink suggested an executive session for some strategy, because the county left off that it was going to foreclosure in September. And there wasn't anything else to talk about until he talked to you in executive session.
Okay,
So it's all, they were all served, remember everything had been served and whatever, so the process is basically done until they flip the switch on the sale. But there was some things to talk about in executive session.
Okay, great. So, can I get consensus from the body here that we have an executive session scheduled for next meeting, which would be the 18th?
Ryan, we talked about scheduling one already for the 18th to cover this.
Okay,
Based on
great.
the legal, yeah.
As long as it's covered, I just want
Yeah,
to make sure that it's on our radar.
Yeah, Ryan's got one scheduled for the 8th, the
Okay.
second meeting in
Great.
August.
as
Great.
close as we're getting, the only person that's more anxious about this than you is
He's already-
Laura.
I know, Laura's
meeting in
stopping,
August.
so.
She's been after those,
Mhm.
she's been after those scofflaws for quite some time. Hey,
And then
Chief, code enforcement's in your shop now. What about those containers Rich is worried about?
There could be fireworks in them.
Could be.
Or vagabonds.
Probably all, yeah. That's probably more likely.
Okay.
All right. And then Cheryl?
So, yes, so I'll give you update that we prepared. We participated in a teleconference last week with the attorney, bond counsel, and the financial advisor to discuss the annexation and the use of the incentives. Bond counsel recommendation was to consider that we put before the governing body a resolution of intent to approve abatements and industrial revenue bonds as a way to encourage the annexation. That resolution could be passed the same night as the annexation agreement. Our financial advisor is trying to conduct a financial analysis and develop scenarios on how the project might impact the city. He has still not received the proposed budget and pro forma information from the developer. We are waiting to schedule the next meeting once we get the updated information and the financial advisor has time to review. So at this point, we are anxiously awaiting the Annex M, waiting on information from the applicant.
So we're in the starting blocks.
We are.
We're just waiting for them.
We're there. We're ready. We're waiting on them.
So
To
once we-
shoot the starter's pistol.
Correct.
So just to make it clear, what we're looking for right now is some revenue projections and certain valuation estimates for what portion of this property, because we had talked about an industrial portion and a retail portion.
We are asking for a project budget and a pro forma so that we are able to provide some recommendation to you based on the amount of incentives versus the revenue that the project would generate. And our financial advisor needs that information in order to be able to run that analysis for you to provide.
That's fair. All right. That's all I had.
Okay.
Well, who would I be if I didn't weigh in on the fireworks? And I'm glad that everybody had a great time, and more importantly, I'm glad we had such a good time out at Celebration Park. We had a huge turnout. I think it's probably the biggest that we've ever had. We had live music. We had family fun in a safe and controlled environment. I received emails, complaints, and I received some phone calls, and I received one voicemail message. It was actually Mr. Lavin that was here earlier, and I've collected some of these, and I'm going to give them to the city clerk and just have her scan them and make sure that she provides them to the other council members and you other council members, whether you are hearing good things or bad things about the fireworks. If you get it in some kind of official communication and you'd like to share it with the other council members, then I would suggest doing the same thing, forwarding it to the city clerk so that she can share it with the governing body. I can tell you that one of the emails I got was from former Mayor Carol Lehman, and Mayor Lehman lives around the corner from me, probably about 5 doors down or so. And so some of the issues that she was experiencing, I was experiencing as well. Matter of fact, a couple of cardboard mortar tubes fell out of the sky and almost got my wife while she was grilling in the backyard. Scared the bejesus out of her. I'm going to enter the rest of these just for Jeannie, but they'll be a matter of the public record. But I did want, Mayor Lehman served Gardner in an elected capacity for 22 years. She oversaw the growth of this city from 4,000 residents to nearly 20,000 by the time she left office in 2009. And so when Carol Lehman speaks, I listen. So the message she sent me was, Mayor, I hope you had a great July 4th. I am respectfully asking you to revisit the ordinance allowing fireworks within the city of Gardner. I love fireworks. In fact, I urge the city to take over the fireworks display when the previous sponsors could no longer do so. I would imagine that was the J.C.'s that Mr. Lavin was talking about. I am the one who added fireworks to our Christmas in the Park event. In no way do I wish to take away the fun and excitement of our country's most important holiday. My husband was a veteran. I am thankful for those who fought for our freedoms, and I respect those who are currently serving in the armed forces. but I believe the fireworks, which sound like bombs, are unnecessary and inappropriate in our neighborhoods and subdivisions. I feel 2 days of listening to these bombs go off is too much. And 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. for 2 days is excessive. Personally, I favor the no fireworks within the city approach, but I certainly would appreciate a tighter ordinance which bans and enforces the ban on the fireworks that sound like M80s or cherry bombs. Thank you for your attention, Carol Lehman. So, I want everybody to have fun. I want everybody to enjoy Independence Day inside Gardner, Kansas. I want us all to have love and dedication for our country, and I think we all ought to have pride in it, but maybe not too much pride. There's a reason pride's one of the 7 deadly sins. So, that being said, all in all, I think it was a great weekend. The more people that we could get to come and visit our July 4th celebrations out at Celebration Park, the better. I got a chance to get on stage and welcome people. I asked how many people were visiting. It was a pretty nice number. So this is not only did we have plenty of Gardner residents in attendance, but we had plenty of visitors in attendance, and it's great to make a good impression on them, and it's great to have events like this so that we can. That being said, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I got one thing.
Oh, sure.
Would you mind just mentioning the appointee that we did tonight? We did one on the consent agenda.
Oh, yes.
We usually mention something about the person.
Oh, sure. This evening, we appointed Carrie Wilson to the Citizens Police Advisory Commission. I believe this was your appointment, wasn't it, Lee?
Yep.
Very good. Thanks for reminding me about that, and
thanks to Carrie for stepping up.
Yeah, and I never have a problem with a point of order, so. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, shoot, second, Melton, that we adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, any abstention? We stand adjourned.